Yeah, so as I say, I'm a big fan of technology that GoProposal is bringing here. It made a massive difference to me, systematized how we're doing it, gave us the opportunity to have those conversations. And of course, the client doesn't tend to argue with the menu. You don't go into a restaurant and say, I'll have the steak, but I'm not going to pay you that for it. I'll give you X or whatever. So generally, if it's on the screen, the clients are largely accepting of it. And as Chris showed there, that some 80% of the clients for the firms that have gone through this with GoProposal had immediate acceptance. And then Chris took us through lots of ways of dealing with it, because you will get some objections. And sometimes it's just that the client's not right for you, and it was about time you had that discussion. And other times you'll find an agreement, again, as Chris says, possibly by removing some of the additional services they were after, or maybe downgrading some of the services if that's what's required. So what I also used to take the chance to do was have this discussion about how they can grow their business. If it's okay with everyone today, if we've given value today, what I'd like to do is a short pitch for Armadillo before we finish. I've got something particular I want to share with people. So this is how I captured the interest for most of the clients that went on to become my coaching clients, business development clients, consulting clients, whatever you want, whatever term you prefer. Some of these clients have been with me now for up to 15 years. And I meet with them every month, and they pay me for a full day of my time. So what I do at the end of the meeting, I explain to clients there are only 4 ways to grow your business. Would you like to know what they are? And I don't think I ever had anybody say no. Well, maybe one. He said, no, son, just make the tax go away. But other than that, generally the clients are interested how they grow their business. And I said there's 4 ways, and most people tend to know number 1, and to some extent number 4, which I'll come on to in a moment. Number 1, of course, is increase the number of customers. And there are multiple ways to increase the number of customers. If that's what your client wants, or if that's what you want, then okay. And you can speak intelligently to a client about marketing, advertising, networking, social media these days. But remember, with each new client comes a cost. If you actually have a product that you're selling, then it might be a direct cost, or there might be a direct cost of labor. But if nothing else, if you're already working 5 days a week and you're increasing the number of customers, how are you going to manage that? Or what's going to happen to your service levels? So number 2 is increase the average transaction value. How can you get the client spending more every time they visit? And increasing prices is probably the most obvious way, which Chris has just taken us through. It's not the only way, but it's the most obvious way. What other services can you offer? Can you bundle services? Can you look at 3-tier pricing? An example I used to use at the time was McDonald's fast food restaurant, if I can call it a restaurant. And they took young kids, 16, 17 years old, and gave them a script. And they upsold everybody who came through the door. You went in for a burger and they'd say, do you want fries with that? Do you want to go large with that? Do you want a Coke with that? Or certainly that was the language years ago when I used to have to occasionally get dragged in there. But they're just using a script in order to see if they can increase the average transaction value. Or another example I used to use was something like shopping trolleys. The person that invented shopping trolleys had to hire actors to push them around the store to begin with. Initially, men didn't want to be pushing a shopping trolley. It wasn't the done thing. But they hired actors until it became the norm. But by providing a shopping trolley, you tend to fill the trolley. You tend to put more things in. Otherwise, you would only take what you can carry. So it's just about being a little bit inventive, both about what you can do. Everything that I'm talking about, you can do both in your own business and you can speak intelligently to clients about. Number 3 is increase the number of times they buy. how can you get the customer to visit more often? But I always wonder why the accounting firm is only open between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. You've got the building for 24 hours in a day. Or it might be that you shorten the time between appointments. Hairdressers is an obvious one. If somebody comes every 6 weeks, what if you made it every 5 weeks? And then simply across the whole basis, your clients increase the number of times they buy. And number 4 is improve your efficiencies. Systematize things, put processes in place, something like GoProposal. It means that you're consistently hitting the right fees at the right level, and that you're able to do that across a number of senior managers, for example. It might be that it's about removing dead time for a client. It might be about cutting out the waste. A lot of the clients think that the way to grow their profits is to cut all their overheads. But if you take that to its extreme, what business would you have? So bear in mind, efficiency is getting things done. Effectiveness is doing the right thing. What I used to do, I had a little Excel spreadsheet tool, as you could see, hopefully on the picture on your screen. It's just based on an Excel spreadsheet. I hope you can see that okay. So what I used to say to the clients, I would get their accounts. If they're already a client, that's quite easy. If they're not already a client, I'd see them get a hold of their accounts, or I would just use a typical example. And I'd put their figures in beforehand, okay? So in this example, we've got 2 million sales, some direct costs and direct wages, 400K gross profit, 91,000 net profit. And I'd say to the client, if you're trying to increase profits by reducing expenses, let's just use a round sum percentage. We use 5% or 10%. I'm just going to use that as an example. If we were trying to reduce expenses by 5%, what we're going to save is 5% of that figure, 5%, 300K. So you'd increase profits by maybe 15,000. And if you go down through your expenses list, you'll find it's probably quite difficult to reduce your rent and your rates and your electricity and so on by 5%. And they generally agree with me. If you're looking to increase the volume of sales by 5%, what you're actually going to get is 5% off 400K in my example. You with me? So what you would actually get, you'd increase profits by 20,000. If you're able to increase prices by 5%, and potentially what you're doing is increasing it by 5% off 2 million, which is 100,000, which is a 100% increase on your net profit. Because by increasing prices, there's no related costs. What this little tool also did for people, because of course the customer immediately, or the client immediately would be concerned about increasing prices, they're going to lose all their customers. That's the most common concern. If I increase prices, chase all the customers away, I'll be worse off. What this little tool actually does is mathematically calculates that if you increase prices by 5%, you have the same profit even if you lose volume off. And so this would change depending on the figures, but in this example I've got, increasing prices by 5% give you the same profit even if you lose volume of 20%. So if you're already working 5 days a week, how about making the same profit in 4 days a week? How does that feel? Meantime, your competitors are busy trying to increase their profits by attracting more business. So what they do is they decrease their prices. Decreasing prices by 5% in this example would give them the same profit as you, only if they increased the volume by 33%. And if they're already working 6 days a week, they're going to have a challenge with that. And then I would go through it and say to the client, well, what do you think you can change these by? And these little spinners, as they're called, would allow us to play around with the figures a little bit. So it will change a bit depending on the actual figures you put in, but it gave the client the chance to actually visually see and project how those 4 ways to grow their business might apply to their own figures. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. So hopefully overcame their fear of losing customers if they increase prices and made them realize that their competitors were taking the completely wrong strategy and they had to be a little bit smarter than that. Of course, you have to be able to prop up that price increase by offering what the customer wants and providing the best service. If you're just out there chasing more and more customers, what happens to service levels? One of the biggest complaints about accountants traditionally is how proactive they are, how difficult it is to get hold of a partner, for example. If you're trying to service over 300 clients and they've all got one problem a day, then it's little wonder we struggle to be proactive. But if we can get our pricing right, then it actually potentially frees up time. So if you start to teach your clients some of these things that I'm discussing, what it gave me the opportunity to do was offer another service where I either met with a client monthly or potentially quarterly. And it was exactly what Chris showed in his GoProposal presentation, about adding in quarterly meetings, which of course you charge for. And it used to be great sitting down and joining the other accountant, because all I was doing at the time was business development, where the accountant's trying to justify his fee, and within the accounts is my fee, and it's like 4 times the accountant's fee. My fee never got queried because I was able to demonstrate that I was providing value. If all you're doing is preparing a set of accounts months after the year end, then it's probably really little wonder that the clients actually will stop and query the accounts fee. Make sense? Good. Okay, so I did say that I wanted to do a little pitch for Armadillo before we finish up, which we'll do just shortly. We have monthly group sessions starting in September dedicated to business consulting, business development, whatever term you prefer, business coaching. This will involve a 90-minute group session once a month where we'll go through one of the sections in the ABC coaching manual or a similar dedicated topic on business development and answer all your questions and share experiences and share some of the things that have worked for me over the years and some of the things that didn't. Not everything works. Some of the things you have to test out. Somewhere along the line, you're going to come across somebody who doesn't want your service. And you just have to accept that's the way it is. But if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. It's kind of a play on what Chris said earlier. So alongside this, we'll have a dedicated LinkedIn support group, and it is for members only. There's no additional charge for members. Anyone that's not yet a member, we do have a special joining offer going on at the moment, which you can access by scanning the QR code. In addition to the business development group, of course, members also get access to tax support, wellness support, and access to people development, including DISC reports, which we spent a little bit of time on today. We do offer a free DISC report to all partners and member firms and a discounted rate for all their team members. I have a little recap screen as well, Chris, just to quickly run through the things that we've covered today. First one really was when the why gets stronger, the how gets easier, was really about recognizing why we need to look at our own pricing. Whether that's our traditional compliance services or whether it's adding in additional services like business coaching. But if we understand the difference it can make to our own firm, then that makes the how easier. Have a little bit of fun with it. We tend as accountants to have a little bit of fear about what is essentially sales. But you can make it enjoyable, have a little bit of fun with it and identifying client personality types It brings a little bit of an interest into that. And think about who in your office is best suited. When it comes to business development services, it might be that that's not the right thing for everybody in the office, but you may have some star in the office who actually would really enjoy going out and doing that sort of work with the client. Number 4, take the GoProposal pricing challenge. We'll email out, and we'll email all members with details of the GoProposal pricing challenge that Chris mentioned. Number 5, discuss the 4 ways to grow with your clients that I've just taken you through. And if you're using GoProposal, I presume, I didn't actually check with Chris, maybe you can confirm this for me, Chris, but I presume we can add in our own service such as business coaching into what we're doing.
Yeah, the whole thing can be, obviously we give you that initial sort of pricing matrix, as we call it, which particularly if people have been using the old finger in the air approach can be a bit more advanced as a starting point. But then yeah, you can adapt that, change it, delete it all out if you've got your own spreadsheet that you want to build in. Full flexibility of what people do with that as well.
Perfect. That's great, Chris. Thank you. And lastly, if you've got any questions, then please do send them in to us. If there's stuff you want to discuss, we're happy to get on a call and discuss it with you. Hopefully, you've taken a few key learnings from this and have a think about what you're going to use going forward. So often the way we used to call it failure to implement, we stop and listen to a presentation like this, and then we go back to the office and it's all busy, and we get bogged down again in the day-to-day. Take some time for yourself to think about what you're going to use going forward. What did you learn from this, and what difference it can make to your firm? Which, remarkably, Matt, I think it brings us to the end. There's about 5 minutes to go. I just say to people, when it comes to sales, when I'm teaching business clients myself about sales, I say to them that every sale ends in a feeling. At some point, the customer thinks to themselves and effectively has a conversation with themselves that says, how do I feel about that? And you want your customers to feel good. You don't want buyer's remorse. So you want to be able to back up your customer's decision to buy and make them feel like they've had a good decision, made a great decision, and then they'll tell others. And if you're simply focused on selling as cheap as possible, you're likely never going to have that. If they do refer it, then they're going to be referring it to other people that are looking for cheap as possible. So just bear in mind, every sale ends with a feeling. Make sure you've left them with a good feeling. I hope we have today. Very good. Thank you everyone for your time today. I think we're bang on time. We have been recording this, and we will share the recording in due course. But do get in touch if you've got any questions. Thanks very much for your time. Is there anything else I need to cover, Matt? Are we? No?
No.
Okay.
I think we're all good. We're on time, which suggests I've not joined in at all. So well done. Thanks for taking us through that, Gordon. And thank you, Chris, too, for presenting GoProposal.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Great stuff. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll speak to you all again in due course.